We're here in the Anderson TV studio this morning with a fine-looking group of individuals. So let me introduce everyone with us this morning. Ladies first this time. Ann Pankow is the Director of Events and Promotions for Hoosier Park. Seated next to Ann is our Deputy Chief for the Anderson Fire Department, Mr. Wilbert Kelly. And in the back row is our fine sheriff, Mr. Scott Mellinger. Seated next to Scott is the Treasurer for the Fire Rescue House of Madison County, Mr. Frank Caldwell. And seated next to Frank, we have the Deputy Police Chief for the City of Anderson, Mr. Warren Warren. Thank you all for being here this morning. Before we get into the events themselves, I'm going to have Frank tell us a little bit about the purpose and how the Fire Rescue House came about.
Yeah, the Fire Rescue House basically come out of a tragedy. I think it was New Year's Eve, maybe 2008. From that point on, there was some, the community, Anderson firefighters got together and thought we needed, there was a big need for some place when somebody has a fire, they don't have any place to go. This is where this all started, and what we do is we now got 3 locations. We got 2 in Anderson, 1 in Ellick. The first fire victim went in October of 2009, and since then we have housed 95 families in one of the 3 locations. We continue trying to take care of people. We've also, not only fire victims, but we've helped out working with our 2 hospitals, community in Anderson and St. Vincent's. We've had some cancer victims that come into town for treatment that had to stay a few days, and instead of them being cooped up in a motel, being the houses are there, and we didn't have a fire victim at the time. They needed service, so we've let them stay in there. So it's more than a fire rescue house, but basically in a nutshell, that's what we do.
What's it basically cost for the fire rescue houses just to be maintained for a year?
Well, I would think all 3 of them, our biggest expense is utilities and insurance. That's going to run anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000 a year on all locations. And so that's why I say you're probably looking $15 grand to operate these things a year totally, and we're a 501c3, so all the donations are tax deductible to the people who make the donation, and that's where we don't depend on any government assistance or anything like that. Everything's due to donations.
And that's going to bring me to Hoosier Park. Hoosier Park has been not only the host, but a major financial contributor. You can see there's a big need. And they've done this. This will be their 7th year for participating. So Ann, how did Hoosier Park get involved with this, and why?
Well, first of all, because it was a great cause to start with. But when we put together why we were going to have the Guns and Hoses, and we decided to put it in with the races, and so in between the races is when we have these events, and so it just works out to be. We started out, just trying to see how it would go, and now it's one of our biggest events that we have. It's on a Saturday. Kids come out from all over, and families come out to watch, and it's just a fun competition. It just everybody's rooting and screaming, and it's amazing what it's turned into be.
Yeah, it's a great family event. I've been there for 4 years running myself now. So what's the date this year?
The date this year is Saturday, July 29th, and it starts at 5:30, and the racing begins at 6, and then the events are in between races 3 through 7.
Okay. So all the activities for the children and the families are set up in what's called the yard, and that's the paved area that's between the horse track itself and the clubhouse. When families come out, how should they enter with children?
They can enter Hoosier Park one of two ways. There's the far south parking lot. They can come in that way and walk straight to the yard, or they can come up on the racetrack side, up under the canopy where there's free valet parking, and come out by the buffet area, and then come on down to the yard that way.
What are some of the events for the kids?
The kids will be able to, there's a number of things they can do. We have a bounce house there that they can play in, but there's all these rescue vehicles that have these little premier attractions with them. Like there's a fire truck that has a snow cone machine. There's another fire truck where the kids can take their picture. There's an educational firehouse where kids can actually learn how to get out of a house if it's on fire. There's also a couple of things in the casino. If the parents want to go in, if they donate $5 to the fire and rescue house, then they get $5 in free slot play. So there's just a lot of fun things going on.
Well, let's get to the good part of this, and that's the events themselves. I'll go down through the events and we'll talk about them a little bit. Horse race. Scott, describe that for us. What that Salke horse race is like.
Well, it's real interesting because there are two teams. The fire department has two teams. The police department has two teams. Each team consists of two officers or two firefighters, and they take the place of the horse. They actually pull the sulky, or some people call it a cart, with a driver in the seat, and they pull it approximately, I think it's around a 40-yard dash, and it is on the track. So the track itself is not real conducive to tennis shoes, but the guys and gals who pull those sulkies, they get quite a workout, but it's fun because it's I think it's probably one of the other than the tug of war, maybe one of the loudest events that the audience gets involved in, but it's a lot of fun.
And that's one of the events that's kind of been split between teams each year.
I think it goes back and forth.
I think
right?
we even had a photo finish 2 years ago.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
So
I think that one's still under investigation, actually, to be honest with you.
Okay. Bouncy horse. Warren, you want to talk about that one a little bit?
Well, the bouncy horse race, it's all you can say about it. It's lots of fun for the kids as well as it is for the guys. It's similar to what the smaller ones was when we were small children, and it takes you back there, and you just don't bounce off the ground as good as you did then.
And there seems to be some, I don't know whether I wouldn't want to infer anything, but it seems like to me there's some intentional collisions that may occur during that race.
The fire department, they have bigger trucks, so they kind of try to edge us off the road a little bit, but we're a little quicker sometimes, so it works out in the end.
Okay. And again, that's an event that every year is kind of split. Not real sure what's going to happen with that. Now, we'll get to two of the events that kind of have been dominated each year. The tug of war, the law enforcement seems to have kind of taken over that event, so I'm going to go to the assistant fire chief here and say, have you got a strategy figured out for this year? That seems to be an event you guys seem to struggle in.
Well, it is an event that we have struggled in, but this year we've prepared ourselves differently. We did a pure fitness class that's going to help us with our strengths, and hopefully a few bigger guys show up on the back end of that, and we're going to pull those police right through that line for sure this year.
Okay. Then I'm going to give law enforcement a chance here to try to defend what you're going to do about the tricycle race this time. That's been one that the fire department just seems to run away with every year.
Well, if you look at the tricycle and the skills that it takes to drive that thing, it's very comparable to that of a rocking chair. And since firefighters spend so much time in rocking chairs, they honestly have a skills advantage. But we're willing to give that. We're willing to give that.
So if you've been counting as I've gone through here, usually when we're finished with those four events, it's a dead heat. It's tied. It's 2-2. And it's down to, let's get down and rumble with the donuts. And last year, not only did they go through the contest once, but they were tied at the end. How much was it, 2 minutes? Dan, I forget.
I think it may be, it might be 60 seconds.
60
I
seconds?
think it was, yes, because we put an extra 30 seconds on the clock for the tiebreaker.
Okay,
Yeah.
so they went to a tiebreaker
Right.
last year, And on the first count, it was still tied, but then on a second, they went back and
Right.
double checked. The firemen came out by one
Right.
donut.
Yep.
One donut. So anybody here have any comments on that?
Well, the way it kind of started out with the donut eating contest is we do run pretty much neck and neck because, you know, policemen and firemen both love donuts. But I think that someone probably kind of stuffed ours a little more full. And by the time we got done with that 60 seconds, we were still hungry. So that's why we did the extra
Yeah.
30 seconds in
I'm
there.
sure you've heard of Deflategate. This was Inflategate.
Right.
They actually put more substance in there just on the cops' donuts than they did on the firefighters. So.
Okay, so you know that brings up a point. There was a controversy about whether or not we were going to have jelly or no jelly this year. Where are we on that?
No jelly.
No jelly? Is that
Well,
where
there's
we are?
going to be no jelly this year, but it's not because of any kind of inflate or deflate gate. I don't know where you came up with that.
Okay, but we
we
are
are-
adding something to the donuts
Yes,
this year.
so this year they're going to be yeast donuts, but there's going to have sprinkles on them. They're going to have red sprinkles for the firemen and blue sprinkles for the policemen, so we'll be able to count them out.
So it's a fierce competition. But Scott, you want to talk to that a little
Well,
bit?
it is competition, but I want everybody out there to know that we have a lot of fun with this. Not only is this night a great family night, I want to stress that, but this kind of started with an appreciation for first responders effort from Frank and a lot of other folks, and it's kind of morphed into this competition. I will tell you that here in Madison County, we have one of the best, if not the best, mutual aid and fraternity feeling between fire and police and EMS of anybody in the state of Indiana. I mean, the cops, the firefighters, the EMS people, we drop everything to help one another, and we have a lot of fun trash talking during this competition, but it's a great effort from all emergency responders. So, and again, another thanks to Hoosier Park and to Frank and his folks.
So here we are again with the trophy guys, and you know as we count down there, it's 3-3. So we're back into a tie break to see who gets bragging rights next year. So Ann, repeat for us that date and time.
This year's Guns and Hoses is July 29th at 5:30. Racing begins at 6 p.m. and the competitions begin after race 3, which is approximately 7 or 7:15.